Well, let's talk about Zhuangzi. Um, what I'm going to do right now is do some more introduction to it, but this time just by reading a few of my favorite passages from later in the book. We just went over the first couple chapters, I guess, so far. Um, so it's kind of it's yeah. I mean, it's not randomly assorted, but it's not systematic either, which is appropriate. I'm freely and easily wandering through the Shuangzi. Except that I'm not. I've got, bookmarks and uh, marginal notes and stuff like this. I mean, one thing that one might worry about is what happens to this book, this quite unique work of art, uh, philosophical art, under interpretation. Ought it to be interpreted? In some ways, to interpret it is to betray it. Certainly, if you're coming from a Western philosophical conceptuality, which I can't claim that I'm not. So, this whole activity may be to betray the text on which we're focused. But I can't help myself. I'm just going to try not to suck all the joy out of it, though I'll leave you to be the judge of whether I do. Depends on the day. Okay. Um, this is one I've always liked. It also raises a translation issue that I just wanted to point to. This is on page 44. So this would be chapter, what is this, 5, 6. You may sink your boat in a creek, hiding it as well as a mountain may be hidden in the mist, and call it safe. That's one way you hide your boat, sink it in the creek. Um, if you can figure out how to get it back out again, which you probably have means to if you're hiding it by sinking it. Then some midnight, a strong man comes along and loads it on his back, and off it goes. Completely in the dark, some still don't see that although you can hide the small within the large, the boat in the river, there may still be things that get lost. But if you hide all under heaven, that is, you may lose track of some things, and things may get stolen. You may lose things. Maybe I shouldn't be interpreting it as I go along. I should read it. I'm going to start again. You may sink your boat in a creek, hiding it as well as a mountain may be hidden in the mist, and call it safe. Then some midnight, a strong man comes along and loads it on his back, and off it goes. Completely in the dark, some still don't see that although you can hide the small within the large, there may still be things that get lost. But if you hide the world within the world, there's nothing to get lost. This is the great fact that dawns from the heart of things. Okay, now, I do love Seaton and Hamill and Seaton's translation quite a bit. It's very rollicking. I think it clearly expresses the sense of the Zhuangzi as I understand it, particularly having worked on Burton Watson's translations originally, which are wonderful. The fundamental translations of the Zhuangzi into English. I really like the selection in this one though, actually too, of inner and outer chapters. But what I was reading is the world, hide the world in the world. Hide the world in the world. That, I believe, is the way Watson renders it. I've got the Watson sitting here one way or another. Hide the world in the world. Then there's nothing to get lost. First of all, I like this quite a bit. I think, although I'm not sure what it means, which is good. It has a Borgesian quality, if that means anything to you. Hide the world in the world. You could write a fable like that. But the word translated world Tianxia, the phrase is rendered by Seton and Hamill as all under heaven, all under heaven. If you hide all under heaven within all under heaven, that's the way we write on, they translate on 44. There may still be things that get lost. If you hide all under heaven within all under heaven, there's nothing to get lost. Sorry. Well, I mean, that's okay. But all under heaven is definitely not a vernacular phrase in English. It's a better rendering of the characters, okay? But it means the world, okay? Another phrase that means the world, actually, maybe in a somewhat different flavor, is the 10,000 things. They're happy to translate that out, I guess, but not that rarely appears in here. But they insist on all under heaven. I wish they didn't. There's a lot of other good things about the translation, though. One thing I think that's about is the appearance reality split. Philosophers might worry about how we get to reality, how we peel back the delusory appearances of our senses, for example, and see what really is. That's awfully basic to the Western philosophical tradition. And it does appear in China in some form, though not in this kind of sense data form. But at any rate, I don't think. At any rate, though, if you're Plato, this world is a kind of delusory appearance of a real realm of the forms. If you're Kant, this realm is the realm of the phenomenal, as opposed to the realm of what we experience, what we can experience, as opposed to the reality underlying it, which is the noumenal, which we can't actually access. The appearance reality split. One way I want to read this hide the world within the world as saying, like, no, nothing is concealed, actually. We're totally embedded in this world. Okay? If you think there's some kind of esoteric knowledge to uncover, all I'm telling you is just attend to your actual situation, which is that you're completely embedded in a real physical environment. Okay? There's nothing hidden. Like, you can hide a boat in a river. You can hide something small and something big, but you can't hide the world in the world. It's everywhere, man. So absolutely ordinary experience is the way we access real reality. The highest plane of truth is the most ordinary experience. That's a sort of claim that really would be central to Chan developments, Chan Buddhist developments, highly influenced, as we've discussed, and as the introductions to these things that I'm giving you discuss, by Daoism and Zhuangzi specifically. Okay, let me try another one. I kind of like the outer chapters better than the inner chapters, even though I understand reading it why they think the inner chapters are the earliest. They have a different flavor. Zhuangzi maybe doesn't appear as a character, and could conceivably be the author. I should probably check that carefully, but less so anyway as a character. At any rate, I think the outer chapters are as revealing or more revealing about the basic teachings of Taoism, even than the inner chapters, or at least they run somewhat clearer in some ways. Maybe the theme of the inner chapters is specifically the use of the useless. Okay, which is good, but it's not the only theme. How about this? This is on page 89. I guess, like I say, I'm kind of previewing, or these are passages I want to refer to and come back to in discussions, like maybe on Tuesday. This is in chapter 17, in the outer chapters, Autumn Floods. It's a famous chapter, though. It's one of the greatest chapters in the Zhuangzi corpus, if you ask me. The one-footed Kuei wishes it were the many-footed Xian. The Xian wishes it were a snake. The snake wishes it were the wind, and the wind the eye. The E-Y-E, the eye. The snake wishes it were the wind, and the wind the eye. The eye would be as quick as the heart and mind if it could be. The one-footed Kuei said to the many-footed Xian, or let's try this, the one-footed Kuei, whatever that is. I'm trying to picture one-footed, oysters have 1 foot or something? Anyway, the many-footed Xian, the millipede maybe. I hop around on my 1 foot, and I'm pretty good at it, but you use 10,000 feet. All the feet in the world, man. Look at you, millipede. How can you manage that all alone? Right, or just picture yourself, like, okay, putting 1 foot in front of the other, right? Left, right. Now, what if you had 1,000 feet and you had to go right? Impossible to do that consciously, right? Now I'm going to put foot 487. That's not happening in the millipede. Okay, but the 2-footed a man, let's say, like, how do you do that? Especially because the only way I can picture doing anything is deciding to do it and then doing it, putting 1 foot in front of the other, I guess. But which is actually not how we walk either, making decisions like that. But anyway, but I can't imagine how complex the brain must be, the mind must be, of a creature that can, like, say, consciously arrange 10,000 legs to perambulate. Okay. I have about, how do you manage that all alone? You don't even have a staff to move your feet for you. That's not how it is, the millipede replied, the Xian. Haven't you ever seen anybody spit? Ptooey! And often in class, I have hocked up a big loogie and spat on the wall. Or I used to do that when I was quite a young professor, I guess. That's, that's really disgusting, and I apologize to any students that saw that. Okay, haven't you ever seen someone spit? Ptooey, and out come big drops like pearls and little drops like mist. All different kinds of spittle fly out in uncountable numbers. As for me, I just give it a bump to my heavenly mechanism. I just give a bump to my heavenly mechanism. I don't even know how it does what it does, but it does it. Okay, so I mean, one thing here is a lot of what we do. Certainly we don't intend every actual dimension of our own actions. So, like, if you just spit, first of all, you might not think about it at all. It depends on how frequently you spit, how habitually you spit, like you're a baseball player or whatever, let's say. You don't think about the next spit, actually, it just comes out. But even if you do, you spit intentionally, but you don't arrange every drop of spittle intentionally. You just let the heavenly, that is the natural Tian, the natural mechanism, go. And it goes. You just give it a bump. And it creates this amazing, beautiful fountain of phlegm. Maybe that's how art happens too. And you just give the mechanism a bump and it does it. Right. And like I say, this is kind of an alternative to the idea that basically what we do by conscious rational decision or something like that. Maybe we do sometimes. Maybe that's all an illusion. But if we do, it doesn't work as well as when we just give the heavenly mechanism a bump. All right. How about that? That's a sweet one. Uh, so in the autumn floods, there's several scenes of Zhuangzi sitting by the river, um, including this great one. Zhuangzi was that I've talked about already. This on 92. Zhuangzi was fishing from the banks of Slave Creek when two ambassadors from the king of Chu approached. Our master wishes to encumber you with the governance of his realm. We want to put you in charge. Zhuangzi held his pole without looking back and replied, I've heard that Chu has a spirit turtle that's been dead 3,000 years, and the king has it wrapped and boxed and stored in the high hall of the ancestral temple. Do you think that turtle would rather have died so his bones could be ennobled, or to be living, dragging his tail in the mud? Why, he'd rather be living, dragging his tail in the mud, the ambassadors agreed. Go away, Zhuangzi said. I'm dragging my tail in the mud. Turtle shells were used for divination, by the way. There could be highly honored ancient turtle shells sitting around at the end of the emperor's court, maybe. Speaking of anarchism, though, or just like civil disobedience in the sense of like, I just don't participate in that kind of stuff. Not if I can avoid it. Well, I don't know if that's the right attitude or not. When your country calls you to serve, you serve. Or you drag your tail in the mud. But I meant to focus on this one. This is on the bottom of 93. This is a very famous one too. I guess they all are in a way. Zhuangzi and Huizi, this is maybe his best friend, the logician. So he's trying to figure stuff out. And they like to wrangle. And they kind of wrangle rationalists versus irrationalists in this kind of rationalist play. They play at arguing. This is a case in point. And it's partly a parody of philosophical argumentation, of the sort that maybe the historical character of Huizi engaged in, actually, or a whole school of Chinese philosophy, or several of them, actually. This kind of wrangling about words and stuff, as philosophers have been known to do. But you're not going to be able to get to the truth of Daoism by wrangling about words, now are you? If there is a truth of Taoism, of course. Okay, anyway, bottom 93. Zhuangzi and Huizi were walking along the dike above the Warrior River. There's a Warrior River down in Alabama, actually. I used to live near there. When Zhuangzi said, note how the minnows dart out to wander where it suits them. That is joy for a fish. Like just darting around, wandering wherever you want in this little pool. You're not a fish, Huizi said. So how do you know what's joy for a fish? You're not me, Zhuangzi said. Zhuangzi replied. So how do you know that I don't know what's joy for a fish? And so one thing he's saying was like, okay, you're kind of sinking everything into this subjectivism. Like, how can I know what it's like to be a fish? How can I know what it's like to be a fish? This is a famous question in Western philosophy over the last 40 years or whatever. The what's his name question. Thomas Nagel, what is it like to be a bat? Here's an answer. Okay, you're saying I can't understand what it's like to be a fish because I'm locked in my skull. Oh yeah, okay, so but you're locked in your skull, so how do you know what I know about fish? Huizi comes back with that, I'm not you, so I most assuredly don't know what you know. You're most assuredly not a fish. So my proposition concerning you not knowing what is joy for a fish remains unrefuted. That's true. I don't know what you know, Chuang said. But my point remains that you also don't know what that friggin' fish knows. Right? It's likelier that I know something about what you know because we're pretty similar, but not that fish. Okay. Um, and here's Shuangzi's response. Oh please, oh please. Could look at the translation on that one. Let's get back to the root of the issue. Shuangzi said, "How do you know what's joy for a fish?" That's what you asked. How do I know what's joy for a fish? So you already knew that I knew when you asked me. How do I know? That's just a little verbal trap. Parodic, I'm saying. Uh, I know it by walking above the warrior. I know it by walking above the warrior. I know it by being here in the presence of the fish. So one thing I would say is this is a kind of externalism about philosophy of mind, if that means anything to you, about mental content, or it's an extended mind thesis. I'm not locked in my head trying to figure out by empathy and intuit what fish know. I am here fully connected and fully embedded in this environment with the fish too. And we're kind of knowing this stuff together. How do I know it? Well, not by reasoning like we just did, which got us nowhere, but just by being here now in the presence of these things in the ordinary world. And that's what knowledge is. Okay. Just one more passage, and I did want to get this kind of focused on because it's one that I often return to. And like if I'm asked for an example of or to explain the concept of Wu Wei, for instance, or the concept of Daoism as presented by Zhuangzi, I often appeal to this passage. This is about 107. And this is also a chapter that I particularly love, but I'm always forgetting numbers these days. Which one is this? Getting to Living, chapter 19. Confucius appears over and over as a character in this, and various ways. Sometimes he's a Taoist sage. Sometimes, and probably more often, he's talking to someone who's more or less a Taoist sage, and he's shocked by their amazingness. But he's definitely treated with total lack of solemnity. He's kind of like bopped around very casually, sometimes teaching what he taught, sometimes just bewildered by the flow of the universe or whatever. I mean, it's a simultaneous, in part, expression of respect, but also kind of it's bringing Confucius down to earth, really, like just sticking him in these stories, which are very earthy stories. Confucius was viewing Lulang. I'm going to do one passage after this too. I'm sorry. Confucius was viewing Lulang Falls, where the water cascades down nearly 300 feet into billowing rapids nearly 40 li long. I think a li is about a third of a mile. Not even fish, turtles, or other water creatures could swim there. So when he saw a man swimming, he immediately assumed it was an attempt to end a bitter life. He sent his disciples downstream to try to rescue him, but before they'd gone more than a few hundred paces, the man emerged from the flow, hair streaming behind him, singing as he swam up to the bank. Confucius caught up with him and inquired, "I took you for a sprite, but now I see that you're a man. May I ask, is there a Tao of how you go along with the water? Is there a way? What is your method of doing that? How'd you survive? What's your Tao?" "Lost," he said. "Lost. I possess no Tao." Those are the words of a Taoist sage. I possess no Tao. The Tao isn't anything, for one thing. I mean, it's an absence, maybe. It's where the trees aren't, the path. But also, there's no method. Okay, there's no way. Like Confucius will say, like, here's the education system, here's the way to become a gentleman. The Taoist sage has no Tao, like the Buddhist no self a little bit, except cosmic. Well, the Buddhist no self is cosmic too. I possess no Tao. I was born into it. It grew to be my nature, and now it's my destiny. It's just like the little natural mechanism that I give it a bump. I enter into the whirl and exit from the swirl. I follow the Tao of water. I don't follow my Tao. I follow its Tao. Doing nothing of my own. This is how I get along in the water. What do you mean? Confucius asked. When you say, I was born to it, it grew to be my nature, and now it's my destiny. I was born on land and raised to know the security of the land. That's how I was born to it. I grew up in the water and learned to know the feeling of security in water, so now that's my nature. I don't know how I can do what I do, yet I can. It's my destiny. It's my nature, I think it would be better. It's what I am. And after all, what we are is mostly water. When you take this kind of very, very ordinary, everyday approach, though I'm not necessarily, I mean, there's another one earlier, maybe less uplifting example where, he says, when people are really drunk and they fall off a carriage, they don't hurt themselves because they're just totally relaxed, which is maybe sort of true in some situations. When they forget that their conscious resistance to the forces around them, that's Wu Wei. He realizes this Taoist sage, I guess, realizes that his nature is water, realizes that he's embedded in the water, and simply lets himself go. If you fight it, you'll be dashed to pieces. If you go with the flow, you'll come out singing. Okay. It's not a matter of like resigning yourself. I talked about this on a previous video. It's a matter of the joy it's partly a matter of the joy you can experience in affirmation of what really is and your own total embeddedness in it. All right. That's a model of Wu Wei, I think. A good little parable of Wu Wei to express the idea. This is a lovely, famous one, and I think it really gives you a lot. And you see a lot of this in Chan, I must say, in some of the more sort of radical moments in later Chan. Linji, for example. Tungwo-tzu, this is 126. Knowing Wandered North is the name of the chapter. I don't know why it's called, that's probably the first three words. Chapter 22. Tungwo-tzu asked Zhuangzi, where is it that you find what you call Tao? This Tao, where the hell is it? Like a skeptic might approach a priest, God, where is he? Right. And he says, and a priest might respond this way too, at least initially, there's nowhere that he isn't. I can't accept that unless you get more specific. Like, thanks a lot, everywhere, huh? Nowhere too, huh? Well, the Tao is in ants, ants, ants. Lower than that, it's in weeds in the fields. Even lower, it's in shards and tiles. And even lower, it's in the piss and shit, Zhuangzi said. And that is the way most of the translations go, except the really polite ones. Where's the Tao? It's in the piss and shit. And I'm going to say again, a radical acceptance of the ordinary physical world and our embeddedness in it and our physicality, our bodies as part of this physical system, a complete acceptance of that is like this kind of goal of Taoism. And then also what happens in that affirmation is a breakdown of some of these hierarchies of value, where you go like, what's most high is the pure intellect, and what's lowest is the piss and shit. Now, that is actually exactly the position of Plotinus, the Neoplatonic philosopher, and the rest. What's highest is like the pure intellect, and what's lowest is the piss and the shit. Right. Well, I mean, a Taoist sage is more likely to say, well, I'll tell you what, try not pissing or shitting for the next month or two, and let's see what you're thinking, Mr. Pure Spirit. Okay? And it's an affirmation of all of the world, including aspects of it that are difficult to accept, or that are devalued, or that are smell bad. Well, that's just a range of passages in the Zhuangzi. I hope to produce some kind of little concordance where I trace at least some themes through some central passages, so we have some way of organizing this. It's very informally organized. It's not that it often has a sequence of passages on similar themes. Sometimes it seems to jump around almost randomly. There does not seem to be an overall thematic structure, actually. This is really complex, actually. But so I'm going to try to organize some themes, as I did with the Tao Te Ching, into a little concordance where, like, if you're trying to explore, yin yang opposites, or skepticism about ethical values or something, you'll have a way to focus in on some chapters. I guess I got to do that. But all right, see you soon. Like next Tuesday.